Hey, what's up, fellas? How you doing, man? Antonelli here.
Hey, what's going on, guys? How we doing? Man, Antonelli here. Today we're looking at some of the swing changes during my major league career. We have over here, this is my first major league at bat and first hit. And then over here we have 12 games later. This is a home run, my only major league home run. And I get asked a lot from people, what do major league hitting coaches do, and how does your swing change throughout the year? And so this is a pretty drastic example right here, if you can see it, of how different my swing looks. And I want to kind of get into the background of this because it's pretty interesting. At least I think it's interesting. And I think it'll shed some light on how things are done, not just at the major league level, but at the professional level in general when it comes to hitting. So let's break down both of these swings, and then we're going to go over some numbers, and we're going to get kind of behind the scenes a little bit. So over here, let's start off with my swing from my first at-bat in the major leagues. This is essentially, I just got up. I flew in this morning, the morning of this game, okay? So no one on the major league staff had said anything to me yet about my swing. And you can see how low and crouched I am, right? I'm very low. I'm much lower than this. My feet are further apart, although it's tough to tell from right here. But I think the biggest difference in the, you don't have to be a baseball person to see how much lower I am and how much smaller my stride is. So I'm lower, I'm wider. You can see how I just kind of pick my foot up and put it down, right? So very little movement compared to on the right over here, right? Now I'm much taller, so I'm standing up straight, my feet are much closer together, and now I have a totally different stride, right? So I guess you can call this a leg kick, not a huge leg kick, but you can call that a leg kick right there. So definitely a difference, a pretty large difference. Again, this is only 12 games apart, so you may see this sometimes, maybe a year apart, maybe a couple years apart, but to only be 12 games apart, especially when I just made it to the major leagues, I would say that's pretty rare to see swing changes this different. So let's talk about a couple things, okay? Over here, this is actually the worst year of my life right here, baseball-wise. So I had went through the minor leagues really, really quickly. I had hit 300 pretty much at short season, at high A, at double A. Those are the levels I played at during my first 2 years of the minor leagues. And actually, I played at those during my first year and a half of the minor leagues. And I'd always hit really well. And my swing was always, not exactly like this, but I was always spread out. I was always, I had a very small stride. I was always pretty low. I'm going to throw up a video here of just to look at during the minor leagues. This is in Lake Elsinore, California. This is when I probably felt the best in my entire life at hitting. Ended up hitting this year. If you take out the last month of the season in August, which was absolutely horrendous for me, I ended up hitting, I think I went into August hitting like I probably went into August hitting like 330, something like that, with 21 home runs. And then I had a horrendous August. That's kind of when my swing broke down, and that's kind of what led to the next year, which is this year right here, when I was in AAA and I hit horribly. Now, one of the things is, and I don't have enough videos to go back and show all this stuff, but one of the things is, I started to struggle a little bit down the stretch, and I started to get worked with more and more by our hitting coaches. And this, I do not want to blame our hitting coaches, but one thing that I was told a lot during my career is that when I was low, when I was spread out, when I had a small stride, I was told a lot that wouldn't really work at the major league level. And so I'd never been at the major league level, obviously, so I didn't know if it would work or it wouldn't work. All I knew is that it was working now. I'd hit really well for a while. And And so they slowly started to get me to try to do this more, okay? Stand up more, take a bigger stride. And I went to AAA, and I stunk. My numbers are horrendous. I was hitting like 160 for most of the year. And so I got to the point where I was about 3/4 of the way in. Nobody could help me. I tried to do everything, and I just couldn't hit. And my buddy, Sean Wooten, who, I've told this story before. I'm going to tell the very, very quick story of it. My buddy, Sean Wooten, said he ended up getting traded over to the Padres to AAA. And he had played with me previously in the past. He was my AA teammate before getting released. And so now he came back. And he saw me swinging, a little bit something more like this. And he said, "What the heck? You are horrendous. You are terrible." I said, "Thank you, Sean. I know that. I can see my stats on the board every day. I go up there and hit. It says 160. Like, I know I'm terrible." He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I have no idea. I can't hit." So we started working together. And we'd literally be in the hotel room at like midnight on a road trip, and I'd be in the mirror trying to like do swings, and he'd be like, "Okay, you got to do this and this and this, and we got to get you back to doing what you did before." So one of the adjustments we made was, we made a lot, but one thing was that we ended up loading a little bit differently, right? Getting into different posture. And another thing I did was I started to spread out again. I started to get lower. Now, I didn't get this low, all right? It was not this low, but I was much lower. And I went back to having kind of a smaller stride. And I started hitting all of a sudden in AAA. And I was like, this guy's a genius. So I'm hitting. Now I'm hitting, over the last month, I'm probably hitting right around 300. I hit more home runs in my last month than I had in the previous 4 months. And I'm like, this is working. So I started equating. Now, that I was doing a lot of things differently, but one of the things, and I think this kind of triggered, because I'd done it my whole life, one of the things that I really felt was this: get down low, get spread out, and get back to making a very small stride, right? So you can say I barely even lift my toe up. I don't even lift my toe up. I just lift my heel up, right? And I just put my foot down. And so I get called up now all of a sudden. I'm having the worst year of my life, but because I had a great last month, they call me up. So I get up there. Now I get up with this swing. And on the very first pitch, well, not very first pitch, very first at bat, here's an 86 mile an hour 1-1 fastball right down the middle. I hit it for a single. Now I go to first base, and in my mind I'm thinking, I'm the greatest hitter of all time. I'm going to get 5,000 hits. Well, here's what's interesting. After this game, I get into the clubhouse, and the hitting coach comes over, calls me in, and he says, "Listen, tomorrow, I want you to get here early. We've got to get you standing up more. We've got to get you some more rhythm. We've got to get you to stride a little bit more. You look rigid, and so let's get here tomorrow and work on it." And I'm like, literally, I died a little bit inside, and I was like, oh, no, please no. Because I just kind of went from getting something like this, trying to get back to this. Now, this is not, I'm not saying, people will look at this and be like, oh, like, that doesn't look that great. The thing is, when I hit well, I thought it was because, I knew there were some other things, again, but I really felt because I was down, low, in my legs, spread out wide, and small stride. So the more I hit, the lower I went. The more I hit, the lower I went. The more I hit, the lower I went. And that's why I got to the major leagues and was this low. I was never really this low when I was hitting well before. But I just said, hey, man, get down low, spread out, small stride, and let's hit. And that's the way I always felt comfortable. It's the way I did it most of my life. So that's why I looked this low. So having to go over to this was like terrifying. Okay? And not only that, having to do it at the major league level. So now we start working on it. And if you look at my stats, right, I got to hit my first at bat, and then we start working on it, and I go 0 for 3, 0 for 4, 0 for 2, 0 for 5, 0 for 3, and at this point I'm hitting 048. I never got another hit once I started working on this. And if you play baseball, you know how difficult it is to try to make swing changes. But not only that, I'm trying to make swing changes at the major league level. I'm trying to go from this to this while trying to hit guys like Clayton Kershaw the next game, or like Tim Lincecum, or like Matt Cain, or Ubaldo Jimenez, or I don't know, all these guys that I faced during this change. And it was really difficult, and I got to the point where I remember like not wanting to go to the park because it felt like it wasn't really me playing. It felt like, I don't know, I felt like I wasn't doing well, and people kept telling me, like, don't worry about your stats, man. Like, the coaches would tell me, don't worry about your stats, man. Like, this is long term, man. We're just working on things. It's long term. It's really hard to do that when you work your whole life to get to the major leagues, and you finally get there, and after one game, someone says, okay, yeah, we're going to get you to swing a different way. So good luck, go get them. So I'm like in the games, the next probably 10, 11 games, and I'm thinking like, okay, when do I put, like the guys pitching, and I'm like, okay, I haven't done a leg kick really. When do I lift my foot up off the ground? Like, when do I get this thing going? And I'm thinking this while I'm trying to hit, and it's just like strikeout, strikeout, foul ball, strikeout, 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 strikeout. I cannot square the ball up. Now, finally, I get to the point where we get to this day, and this is where I kind of, I had a really good day this game, and actually probably a few games before this, against the Giants, I went 3 for 5. That's when it started to feel a little bit more natural, and I probably started thinking about it as much, and so, I started hitting the ball a little bit better. Never felt super comfortable. But at least I was comfortable enough, I guess, to start getting some hits. But I finished that year at hitting 193, and never got another at bat in the major leagues again. I ended up being on the team in 2010. I went back and rehauled my swing. I kind of went more towards this again, not exactly like this, but again, if you see any spring training videos, I'll see if I can find some. Spread out, low, small stride, all the same stuff. I went right back to this again because I just couldn't hit like this, and so I'm always wary when I try to tell people like some coaches are quick to just be like, yeah, we're gonna give you a different stride, different kick, leg kick, different this, different that, and sometimes it's really hard. And I just, for whatever reason, I just couldn't hit like this. I just couldn't do it. I always had to be lower. Again, not this drastic, but I had to be in my legs. I had to really feel my legs. And the way I did that was I spread out and I got low and I took a smaller stride. Now, some guys do the opposite, and that feels great for them. And they hit really well for them. That works really well for them. But you also have to remember, when I do this right here, I'm like 20. I just turned 23, I think. And so I had done something similar to this my whole life. You're talking about, if you look back at my swing from like Little League, or I remember finding a footage somewhere of me when I was like 12, I think, and I'm like pretty low, spread out, small stride, very quick, rigid movements, right? Not smooth. You never look at me like, man, that guy's smooth right there. Like, I was not Ken Griffey Jr., but that's just the way I hit. And so you do that for a long time. You do that for 10 years, 11 years, and then all of a sudden, when people say, hey man, we gotta, like, you're too rigid, we got to get you fluid, and we got to stand you up. You're trying to reprogram something I've done since I was like in diapers, almost in diapers, very young. And it's not always that easy. And so that's why I'm very careful with hitting stuff, because, some guys really need work, right? Some guys really need, they need improvements to their mechanics. They need changes to their mechanics, right? But you also want to make sure that you're changing things that need to be changed, and not just aesthetic things like striding a little bit differently or standing a little bit taller, or those type of things. So anyways, hopefully this makes some sense and is an interesting look into some of my swing changes in a very small period of time. And when this season ended, I think I might have already said this, when this season ended, I tried to kind of go back, and I kind of fought with coaches for a while. This is where I started to, not fight with coaches, but the next year was kind of a transition to learning how to talk to coaches and not just do everything they say and give them my input. And people kept trying to change me, stand up, spread all this stuff. And then it was 2010 where I was just like, okay, forget it. I'm going to do what I think is going to work, because I didn't hit for 2 straight years. And people started to tell me, some of the advice I got was, dude, this is your career, and you can try to make everyone happy and try to do everything everyone's saying, but you're not hitting anyway. So you can keep doing that, and then you'll be out of baseball forever. Or you hit during your life, you got here, right? And I got there without really ever, my whole life, I never was like, someone never told me like, this is how you got to hit. And I was like, okay, I just hit, always hit well. So I went back to kind of doing that, and actually hit really well in 2010. And I led the major league team in hitting, I think, that year in spring training. I think I hit like 387 or something like that, and thought I was going to make the team. Ended up breaking my hand and missed the entire season with 2 surgeries. So, and then I left. Then I went to the Nationals. So anyways, let me know if you guys have any questions in the comment section below. Share the video with all your friends. Subscribe to the channel. All that good stuff. Hopefully you found this interesting and entertaining. And that's all I got. We'll talk to you later.